Good morning, viewers. Today we are going to be replacing the differential mount on this 2015 Toyota Sienna. This particular Sienna has all-wheel drive, and so the bushing on the differential uh, bracket or mount is is starting to crack and to separate. I notified the customer that it needs to be replaced at a later date, but they wanted to replace it now. So I told them that they didn't have to replace it yet. It was just something to keep an eye on, but the customer requested that they wanted to replace it anyways. So we are going to be doing that today. And so now I opted out from buying the entire bracket from the Toyota dealership because the entire bracket, it comes with the mount and everything, but the part itself is roughly just over $700 or $800. So it's very expensive. I just decided to get an aftermarket um, mount or bushing. So I'm going to remove the bracket off of the vehicle and replace it with this one. We are just going to be pressing out the old one and pressing in the new one. This is an aftermarket part. It's by Anchor. The part number is 10274. So I'm going to go underneath the vehicle and show you on where this part is located, and show you the wear and tear on the rubber, and then we are going to remove it off of the vehicle and press the old bushing out and press the new bushing in. So at the time of this video, I got this bushing or mount for roughly maybe like $40 or $50 Canadian. The one at the Toyota dealership is like $700 or $800 Canadian. So I just got this because this is cheaper, and so I want to save some money to the customer because it's extremely expensive. So I'm underneath the vehicle now, and this is the bushing over here. So if you push up and down on the bushing, you can see it's moving a little bit, but it's not too bad. But you can see it's starting to separate a tiny bit. It may be hard to see that on camera, so you can see it's like starting to separate in the corner. You can see it's cracked over here and just has started to separate a tiny bit. You can also you can see the part number as well that's on the bushing. And here's the other side. I'm trying to get the camera to focus so you can see it's started to crack now. So we are going to be replacing it today. Now as I push up and down on the drive shaft or on the differential, it does not move as much. It's moving a tiny bit, so it's still acceptable. So this is not too much movement, but you can tell that the rubber has started to crack and to separate a tiny bit. So in order to get this off, there are a total of 4 bolts, 17 millimeter bolts, and 1 bolt for the metal plate. I don't know if they call this like a stiffening plate. And then there's a 19 millimeter to remove the mount. And then later we're gonna remove the 2 bolts that's on the side for the damper. So we're gonna remove the one 14 millimeter bolt for the stiffening plate or the metal plate. It's a 14. I'm just using a ratchet so that just in case there is too much rust, so the bolt does not break. So here's the one bolt. So I'm just going to end up moving all four bolts for this plate because it's going to be in the way, because we have to support the differential before we take off the bracket. So we're just going to take off all of the bolts now. I'm just going to loosen the rest of the three. The one in the back. So we are going to set the plate aside. I set the plate aside here on the floor. So now we just need to get like a jack or a bottle jack of some sort to support the differential and a block of wood. So I'm just using a couple blocks of wood and a bottle jack. You can use a regular jack if you want to support the diff. And then we are going to take out the bracket. So we are going to remove the 17 millimeter bolts. Just using a long wrench. You can use a socket and a ratchet if you want. Anything that you're able to use to loosen up the bolts. So we're going to loosen up the bolts. Take note that you have two long bolts and two of the short bolts. Make sure you don't mix them up. The two short bolts are the one that's closer to here, and the two long bolts are further away. You can see the thickness. So this is the one that has the thicker part. That's where the long bolts are going to go into. The shorter parts are for the shorter bolts. Well, this one is a 19. There's a bolt here. I believe there's a fixed nut on the other end, but we'll try to loosen this up first. and see on how it goes. You can just use a regular wrench. It's not on extremely tight. As you loosen it, the entire bracket will just slide down on you. Use a electronic ratchet to get this out. Just trying to get the socket out of there. Should be able to slide this out after. And there it is. This is the bolt. Just make sure you note the orientation of the bolt. It's gonna go in this way. Also, don't forget this piece that this came off on the other side. I don't think it's going to matter too much onto where this sits in. I think it just needs to sit in straight or something. So I don't think it's going to matter too much. This is just a fixed nut, so you don't have to hold it in. This fixed nut on the other end is just gonna set in straight upwards here. So it's going to be pointing up, because that's the only way it can set in. So now the bracket is completely out. This is the bushing on how it looks. You can see it moves quite a bit, and you can see the cracking and everything on both ends. We just have to note about the orientation on this, how it has the arrow. It's pointing downward, so we are going to make a mark, so we know exactly on where it goes. So it's going to sit like this. So we are facing the passenger side. So this is how it's going to sit in. So make sure that you note the orientation and everything. Make sure you install the bushing the same way. So compare the old and the new one. Make sure it's the same size and diameter. It should work. It's the same exact part, so it should fit. Now there is quite a bit of corrosion here. You can spray some penetrating oil if you want to make it easier to remove. That's up to you, but we'll see in what happens. For now, I'm just going to take off the damper to get rid of this, so it'll be easier to press it out and to press it in. So this is a 12 millimeter. So we are going to take the damper off. Just make sure that you note the orientation. So it's gonna be like this. So I just I made myself a mark with the Marcal quick stick twist paint marker. So I just made a small mark so I know on where everything goes back. And you see the arrow, I just put a mark here so I know to put it back the same way. So we are going to go down to the basement, and where I have a shop press, we are going to press this out and press the new one in. So now I'm in the basement where the shop press is. I have a very cheap press, but it still works. It's a 12 ton. So this is the press that I'm using. It's a 12-ton press. It's a cheap one, but it still does the job relatively okay. I got this one from Princess Auto many years ago, and so I'm gonna be needing a bunch of different adapters and cups and stuff in order to do the job. So I got a couple of kits from Amazon. I will post the links in the description and in the comments if you want to get yourselves the same kit. So I just have a bunch of adapters and cups and stuff. I don't like using these things because the screws, the forcing screws, they often break. So I just find it easier to use the press instead. So that's a bushing set, and this one is a front wheel drive wheel bearing set. I just got this just in case because there's a bunch of adapters and everything. I do have other adapters too, but that's all I'm going to show for now. So we are going to get started now on the bushing. So now we need to find the perfect cup or cone to go over the sleeve, on the metal sleeve. You don't want to press on the bushing. I was gonna say earlier that you can use an air hammer or something to drive this out if you want, but I'm going to see if I can press it out and then press it in, because that's going to better prepare me to know on which adapters are gonna work. So this one, I believe, from on what I'm seeing, to my best to the best of my ability, that this is going on the outside. So that's exactly on what we want here, and we need to get something that is larger than this one, so that there is space so we can press it out. So we are just going to try that first and see if that works. I have an adapter to go on top, so we are just going to give this a shot first and see if that works. I'm going to try to support it by hand and see and what happens. We will give this a go. You can spray some penetrating oil if you want to make things easier. So I'm going to see if this works. You can see on the other side here, it's sticking out a little bit more. Sometimes you can use an air hammer to drive it out, and that will make life a little easier. But I'm going to see if I can press this out. So from the other kit, this looks like a nice adapter that we can use. So there's an open space here, so that the bushing can come out on the other side. So we'll see if this works. Hopefully, is going to make life easy. To readjust. You don't want to put too much force on it, because otherwise you are going to break something. Make sure that you have safety goggles on before you attempt to use the press for anything, for safety, so you don't get anything flying in your face. A little bit of resistance. We'll stop for a second. And I feel a little bit of resistance there. So if you feel any kind of resistance, it's best that you stop, so that way you don't break anything. the differential bracket mount on the vise. I don't think it's gonna work on the press. It's very corroded, so we're probably just going to use an air hammer to drive it out, but doing so carefully. So we are going to give it a shot now. You need to be careful because this is very soft aluminum. If you nick or damage the top of the surface, it's not a big deal. It's okay. But you have to be really careful. Whoop. You need to relieve the tension on this. So as you're doing this, you need to be really careful. So I have steel-toed boots on, so uh, I'm perfectly fine. It dropped on my foot. Just trying to get all the corners through, so it will make the job easier and easier for the mount to come out. In some cases, it may be easier using a press to get it out. Other cases, you can just use an air hammer in order to drive them out. This is pretty much almost out now. So you want to go very nice and easy. There's no rush. Just make sure you you take your time. Absolutely no rush in doing this job. So make sure you take your time. Just pressing down on the sleeve now to get it out. You don't have to do it this many times. If you're doing something like a steel control arm, they're probably a lot easier and faster to do because this is aluminum. I'm just trying to be extra careful because I don't want to damage it. I only have one chance and that's it. You may just be able to get to hammer this out if you're not able to use the rest of the air hammer. You can just hammer it out with the hammer now. I believe it's already pretty much almost out, and then later we have to clean the surface afterwards. I'm not sure if this is gonna work. See if you use a chisel. I don't want to do too much damage, so I'm just gonna use the manual way. Need some clearance for this to come out. The rubber is moist here, so I don't know if it's trying to get that out. Typically, you should get the rubber out first, so it's not in the way of things interfering. Get this out of the way. The rubber piece. So I don't know if you guys will be able to see the other side, but I'm gonna try to get the other side out as I'm doing the air hammering. I don't have too much space here, so there you go. Bing! Get all that corrosion. Sorry about that, guys. I had you guys slightly off of the camera view, so unfortunately. Anyways, there's a lot of corrosion here, so we are going to clean that up. It's pretty badly corroded, and that's what happens when you use things to go with aluminum and steel, dissimilar metals. So you always get a bunch of corrosion and stuff. So here's the old bushing. You can see how badly damaged it is. I was trying to be extra careful. So you can do this however way you want to do it. There's no there isn't a single way to do this. You can do on whatever way you want to do this. I know that some people, they cut out the rubber and they make a line somewhere to relieve the pressure, and then they just use like a chisel or something like this to drive it out. So you can do on whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. So we are just going to clean the corrosion, and then after we are going to press in the new bushing. So now we're just going to clean all of the corrosion out. I'm just using a brass wire brush attached to an impact driver or drill, and we're just going to clean out the surface here. Also, to make a note of the mark that I made earlier, that we still need to line up the new bushing to where I made the mark. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be close to where the arrow is. There's quite a bit of corrosion in there, so we probably have to get some more like fine or coarse sandpaper to clean all that out. So we're gonna use some 80 grit sandpaper. This is a aluminum oxide sandpaper. So we're just gonna clean the corrosion and the rust here. The buildup is pretty heavy. So depending on the area and where you live, you will have some heavy buildup if you live in the Rust Belt area. So we're just gonna clean this to the best we can. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but has to be somewhat clean, so we're able to press the new bushing in. So I tried to clean this the best I can. There's still a little bit, slightly more corrosion, but it's gonna be hard to clean all of that off. I'm still having a look to see if I can clean any more of the corrosion off, and then we're gonna go ahead, press in the new mount or bushing, and give this a quick clean. You don't want to clean too much of the surface because you want to make sure that you get a tight fit when you press the new bushing in. So now we clean the surface up. We're gonna apply some grease to make it easy to install the new bushing. We're just gonna to put a little bit of grease on the inner surface, and then we're gonna put a little bit of grease on the bushing so it'll be easier to press in, just to make life a little easier. And then in just a bit, I'm going to lightly tap onto the bushing before we press it in. You want to put a light coat onto the bushing. If you want, you can remove the sticker if you want. It doesn't really matter. So we're gonna put a little bit of grease onto the bushing. You don't have to do this, but I'm just doing this for the sake of to make things easy, just in case we're having any difficulty, so you'll press in easily without any issues. So we need to note on where we put our marking, which is right here. So we're going to line it up over here. It's gonna go on top here. I don't think it's gonna matter on what side you press the bushing in. I see two dots and an arrow, and a dot here and a dot here, and here I don't see the dots. I just see two dots and an arrow. So we can have a look at the old one and compare, but I don't think it's gonna matter on which side is which. So we're just going to press it in like this. So what we are going to do, we're just going to line up the arrow over here. Try to get it as straight as possible, and to lightly tap on the hammer all around. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect. You just need to get it close, and then you should be fine. So we're just going to tap it in. Just to make it somewhat straight. I think that should be good. So it'll make it easier to press it in on the press. So this is what we have. so far, so we are just going to press it in now. You see, this is the arrow over here, and that's where the marking was. So I'm just putting it the same exact way I took it off. So you can see the inside. You can just have a look at the inside to see on how it looks. It's fairly straight, so we're just going to press it all the way through now. I don't need this at the moment because it's not in all the way through, so I can just use a flat surface and do that. It's not 100% straight at the moment, but we're gonna try to get it straight in. If it's not straight, then you will have to stop in order to get it in properly. I'm just trying to give you guys a better view of this so you guys can see on how I'm doing this. So I'm just trying to see if I can get this in straight. Now it's going on an angle now. We need to stop. Need to stop for one moment. You want to make sure you stop, otherwise you're going to damage something. Yeah, we probably do need this cup now because it's going to be in the way. Just trying to see if there's enough clearance for this to go through. We'll take this out. This is starting to cause some issues now, so see if we can press this in, because it's the way how the bushing is. It's not like it's a different style bushing. So let's see. I might have to straighten it out with a hammer, maybe, just to give it some light taps. It's not 100% straight, so I might have to lightly tap on this side to straighten it out. So we're just gonna do something for the moment. Just gonna press on the outer edge. It's not straight all the way on the one side, so just gonna carefully press on the outer edge for 1 minute. Just trying to straighten it out so it's centered properly. And we're going to move this to the center. There is some dirt inside here. That's some corrosion and stuff, dirt. So you have to make sure you clean that out well, because sometimes it may make it difficult to press. So getting it to line up is the hardest part. Is the hardest part of getting these in. But once it's like most of the way through, you should be okay after that. It's going in now. I like to go extremely, extremely slowly so that you don't damage anything. You don't want to force anything, so you want to be extremely careful. It's going through fairly nicely. That is just the press. That's just the noise from the press. This is not a very strong press, so it's going in. This is just a cheapo press, but it does the job relatively okay. We're probably going to stop just almost when it's all the way through, because I don't want to damage anything. We're gonna stop now because I'm starting to feel a little bit of resistance. So I want to make sure it's pressed in properly. You can see that the outer part is all the way out, so it's very nice. It's nicely done. You can see earlier when I pressed out the bushing, there's the bottom part of the portion that sticks out a lot more than this part here. So that's how you know you're pretty much all the way through. This is pretty much flush. You can go and put it with the press again just to make sure, but it's pretty much all the way in. So I'm happy with that. This is very nice. I love it. It's pretty cool. So that's your bushing. So we are just almost ready to install this back onto the vehicle now. So once again, you can see that it's smooth and flush on this end. And over here, it sticks out a bit, which is the way it's supposed to be. So you're all good. Make sure it's out all the way and all around, and then you're all good to go. So now we are going to reinstall the damper. It's going to go on the same way I took it off. We're going to put a little bit of grease on the bolts. These bolts, you just need to tighten them down snug. You don't need to tighten them down too much. So once again, this is a 12 millimeter. So I'm just going to tighten this down snug. So we are going to install all the bolts now. I'm just going to grease them up a little bit. I like to apply some form of grease or anti-seize so that they don't seize up in the future. Now, as you are trying to get the differential bracket in, you may need to lower the differential a tiny bit in order to get the bolts in. Because it's going all the way on the solid beam axle here, so you will need to lower the differential a tiny bit. So once you have lowered it a tiny bit, then you will be able to get the bolts in. We're going to tighten this up. I want to tighten it up in a crisscross fashion or star shape fashion, and I will put the torque specs on the screen for you guys to see if you want to torque these bolts. And then later I'm just going to snug them up a tiny bit more afterwards. I'm just going to snug the bolts up. If you want to torque them, you can torque them. I'm just going to tighten it up by feel or by hand. So now we are going to install a bolt for the mount. I cleaned the rust off of the mount bolt. So we are going to reinstall it now along with the fixed hex washer or nut. We need to push up in order to get it through the opening. So I'm just going to lift up on the bracket to drive the bolt through. And we are going to install the fixed hex nut that's supposed to go on the other end. I'm just going to hand tighten this until it sits inside the bracket. So once it sits inside the bracket, you won't be able to turn it anymore. So you just need to tighten up the bolt, and then it should tighten up. So tighten up the bolt now. you should be able to tighten it now, because that fixed hex nut on the other side is being held in place. So just need to tighten this. You don't want to over tighten it. I will put the torque specs on the screen for you guys to see. Just gonna grab a wrench just to give it a final oomph tightening. So now you can see on how tight this is. Hardly even moves now. So it's a lot better than the old one. It's more stiff. You can see the marking that I made earlier. It's still there on where the arrow is. The arrow is pointing downwards. So if you look on the other side, you can see the fixed nut. It hits in the back of the in the back of the frame here. So you don't need to worry about holding it in place, because it's going to be hitting against the frame. So you just need to tighten up the bolt. Just make sure everything is tight now. Double check your work. Make sure these bolts are tight as well. They don't need to be extremely tight, but just make sure they are not loose and everything is tightened up properly. So once everything is tightened up, it should be safe to lower the bottle jack or jack. Since everything is installed now, it should be okay. Just trying to relieve the pressure of the bottle jack. Move the blocks of wood out of the way. And the bottle jack. I forgot to mention earlier. I may have mentioned in some of my other previous videos that if you're gonna use a bottle jack, make sure you use one that's made in Japan, because these ones are going to last a very long time. Typically, the cheap ones, they don't often last and they often leak after a few uses. So I haven't had any good luck with the Chinese bottle jacks. So either get something like this. This is a 12.5 ton. Is by Jet Tools. Said it's made in Japan. The part number, production number is right here, 140106. So either use something like this, or you can use any type of hydraulic jack just to support the the differential as you are removing the mount. So now you just need to make sure everything is tight. Tighten all the bolts up. I'll put the torque spec on the screen. Some of these bolts are like 70 something foot-pounds and some are 90 foot-pounds. But I'll put it on the screen for you guys to see. I'm just going to tighten it up snug, and that should be all right. It's not very crucial to torque these. You can just tighten them tight and you're good. I'm just using a standard 17 mil wrench, and that's okay. This is aluminum, so you don't want to over tighten it. So now on what's left, we just need to reinstall the plate, or the stiffening plate, and that should be it. Going to conclude the video very soon, so just reinstall the plate and everything, and it should be all good to go after that. Just going to grease all of the bolts up. I just like greasing bolts up because they often corrode and get like rusted and stuff, so I don't want anything to seize up in the future, especially if you're working on the same vehicle over and over again and the customer keeps on coming back to you. So it's probably a good idea to put some form of anti-seize or something. Just tying up all of the bolts for the plate. Torque spec is tight. The good and tight, gut and tight, the German method. So now we're going to have a final look at the bushing. Everything is nice and tight. It just hardly moves. Trying to push up on it, and it just moves a tiny bit. So we should be all good to go probably for the next 5 or so years, or even longer. So this repair should last for a long time. Hopefully, it sure beats spending $800 or $900 on the whole bracket compared to $40 or $50 for the bushing. So it does not move very much. It's just moves a tiny bit, which is normal. It's supposed to flex and move according to driving conditions, so that's normal. But all is good now, so we are going to send the customer on their way. So that's it for this one. If you found this one helpful and you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and please don't forget to hit that bell notification, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.